Hello everyone. Today we'll continue with the learning of the Guru Yoga, the part on the main practice. Yesterday we have invited all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they all enter the Hong syllable at our navel. All that our mind visualizes. The Guru is actually the embodiment of all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, all of them would be absorbed at the navel. Then here we make the 7 limb offerings. So yesterday I shared about what I thought about the 7 limb offering. I believe that the 7 limb offering purifies all of our obscurations and allows us to accumulate merit, and also increases our wisdom, our mind, within our mind. In fact, all sentient beings have Buddha nature, the Tathagatava. But sentient beings are unable to show the qualities of a Buddha because we have not recognized our own nature because of our ignorance. And because of ignorance, we've created all kinds of karma. And within our minds, different kinds of afflictions arise. So that obscures our innate wisdom. Therefore, in order to purify all of these different obscurations, in the past, Garchen Rinpoche, when he gave us teachings on the 7 limb offering in Lapchi, what I remember that teaching, and what Rinpoche said is that the function, purpose of the 7 limb prayer firstly, when we're making prostrations, if within our mind stream there is pride, there is conceit, prostrations will be able to purify or be an antidote to that. Because for people with pride, usually they wouldn't prostrate. So that's the point of prostration. And in the process of prostration, the 3, so we put our hands, palms together, and we place that to our forehead, our throat, and our chest center. And in that way, it's able to purify the obscurations of our body, speech, and mind, and at the same time would be able to receive the blessings from our Guru. That is what prostrating means. However, over here, what we're talking about, at the time when I offered Garchen Rinpoche the 7 limb offering, what I meant to express is here in these 2 lines. On page 12, beyond meeting and parting, I respectfully pay homage to the Guru, mindfulness and my own mind. So at that time, this is the meaning that I wanted to express. Because we would always be thinking of our Guru. For a practitioner, in the morning, when one wakes up, one calls out to one's Guru. So you'd be reciting the calling of the Guru within the mind, and also think of the Guru. So when we think of our Guru, so we might only be thinking of the form of the Guru. However, what is this mind that is thinking of the Guru? That is through using the thought. So there are different reasons for thinking of the guru. It is because of our gratitude and faith towards our guru, and that is why we think of our guru. That is why in our minds we think of the guru. But this thought arises from our mind, isn't it? And the guru that you think of is from within our mind. It is a guru, the form that arises within us. On the other hand, if we examine the mind that thinks of the guru, that is actually our own nature, the nature of our mind. And the nature of our mind is the union of emptiness and clarity. So at the start, we can begin by thinking of the thought, or we can think of the guru that we're thinking of, or we can also think of the emptiness and clarity that is the nature of our mind. These three are not separate, they are together. So other than this thought, this pure thought, other than this, there's nothing else. Nothing else has the nature of emptiness and clarity. And other than emptiness and clarity, there is no guru. So when all these three are together, are in union, so we don't have a contrived mind. We think of all these three as one. And in my opinion, this is the purest way of offering a prostration to our guru. And that is based on this understanding of mine that these lines are written. In my experience of practice, there's also something that originated from this. My first time when I went to Taiwan, I went from India. Then over there, I saw His Holiness. So like all ordinary beings, we have this habit of wanting to request, ask for help. And so we know that our own capability is limited, and that is why we request or ask our guru, our Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to help us. So at the time when I met with His Holiness, I asked His Holiness to give me some blessings. And I made 3 prostrations and I made the request. And His Holiness is really compassionate. So he found a text. And it is this text, as you can see in the video, this text. The content of this text is extremely profound. But it is not stated in really, really deep or profound language. The content is profound, but not the language. This is actually Jenga Serap, one of the disciples of Lord Jigten Sungkun. So remember we have Gongchi, the text Gongchi, the guru who wrote Gongchi. So at that time, in the year of the fire ox, Lord Jigten Sungkun was about to pass into parinirvana. And at that time, all of the disciples requested that the guru continue to stay on for a long time. So at that time, the Lord Jigten Sungkun said that there is nothing else that I can leave behind for you other than those, because everything else is from your mind. My Dhammakaya is unborn and will not cease. It will always be there. So at that time, Lord Jigten Sungkun set these 4 lines, and these 4 lines have inspired me greatly. At that time, I'll recite it in Tibetan. That's those are the important 4 lines. What these 4 lines say is that at every moment, you must maintain the state of Mahamudra of your mind. Based on your nature, Mahamudra. Your nature and Mahamudra is no different, it's one. And then what that means is our guru and our mind, they are the same. So Lord Drikung Sungkun had said that. So that if we really believe that our nature is the Buddha, I know that we can trust this line. And from my understanding and experience and practice, in the past, when I was studying Jetsun Milarepa's Song of Realization, there were many times when in my mind there's faith that arises from studying the Songs of Realization. So there was, at that time, Milarepa was about to pass into parinirvana, and the disciples were also asking Milarepa, so where would you be going and where should we go? How can we supplicate to you? At that time, in his biography, Milarepa had said that at any time when you think of me, I would be right in front of you. So that was what Milarepa said. That was what the Jetsun said. In the same way, when we have faith in our Guru, the moment we think of the Guru, he is beyond time and space. He will be here. So at every moment, our Guru is within our mind. So when the Guru in our mind is together, is in union with everything else, then would there be space or room for pride in our mind? No, that's not possible. Because pride arises from dualism, when there's a separation between self and other. Once you have that kind of mind that discriminates self and others, then the thoughts of, oh, I am better than the other would arise. Without that kind of mind, or without that kind of thought, then pride wouldn't arise. Pride would be definitely eliminated completely. So the first is prostration. The first of the 7 limb prayer is prostration, and that is how I understand it. The second is offerings. Making offerings can be an antidote to our stinginess. Most of the times we desire or we grasp onto or cling onto all kinds of material things. For instance, it might be clinging to our body, or to our career, or even to our qualities. So there's that kind of attachment. And when we have the kind of mind that contrives, oh, this is my career, my qualities, then we have the clinging. So we have also made mandala offering, and making such an offering can help eliminate all kinds of contrivance or attachment to these objects. At the time when I wrote this, the lines on page 13, everything, appearance and existence, is offered as an ornament of the six consciousnesses settled in their natural state. So I understand this from this perspective. So we're making offerings, isn't it? And when we make offerings, we should offer good things. We don't offer not so good things, isn't it? It's useless to offer things that aren't good. So we've got to offer good things. But the moment in our mind when we have the idea or the concept of what is good, then what is bad would also be there. All kinds of phenomena can actually be offered. There's good and there's bad. But from the point of view of the nature of our mind, so we have the six consciousnesses: our eye, our ear, our nose, our tongue, and our consciousness. And then for the six consciousness, we have the body, we have sounds, we have form, we have sounds, we have taste, etc. So when all of these different things appear in front of us, then there will be some kind of, then we will contrive and create something that's good or bad. So in Mahamudra teachings, there's a teaching that talks about how something manifests, but then it is free from any fabrication. So you don't contrive and you don't analyze. So when we look at a flower, for instance, we don't say, this is a good flower, this is not a good flower, this is a pretty flower, not a pretty flower. So there's no discrimination between good or bad. And therefore the mind is resting in equality. So there's no good or bad. Everything is good. So if we're able to make offerings based on such a state, then that is how I think it should be done. So what are we offering? We're offering the Guru in our mind, which is emptiness and clarity. And we rest within that, the Guru in our mind, which is emptiness and clarity. So that is how we understand this line from this perspective. So we also say that we offer the way that Samantabhadra offers. And similarly, he's also making offerings in an uncontrived way. That is how I understand offerings. So this is the second of the seven limb prayer, which is offerings. And the third is confession. Confession, the antidote, is an antidote to anger. For instance, for people who have very strong anger, they wouldn't be confessing. For instance, if maybe two people are having an argument, and if this person has lots of anger, at that point, he wouldn't be able to apologize to the other party. Similarly, a person who has lots of anger wouldn't be able to confess. When you confess, it means your anger has been subdued. And then so, the whole point of confession is to confess all of our negative deeds. So over here on page 14, I've written, the clouds of passions and discursive thoughts are confessed as they are naturally freed within the vastness of the basic space. So this is from this perspective. Actually, the source of all of our negative karma would be from our afflictions, afflictive emotions. The moment afflictions arise, for instance, anger, at that point, we hold on to our vow. The moment anger arises, through mindfulness, look at anger. When we look at anger, the moment mindfulness comes, anger loses its power, and naturally, it'll disappear. Where would it disappear into? It disappears into our mind, emptiness of our mind. So this is one way of confessing. So it is really beneficial for us to use mindfulness to look at our mind and confess. I'd like to share with all of you here. Yesterday, somebody asked me, sometimes when I visualize the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I find it very tiring, and sometimes I'm not able to visualize very clearly, and I feel quite frustrated about it. And so for every single practitioner would go through this, would meet with such a difficulty, would face such a difficulty. In the past, when I was doing the Vajrasattva practice and the preliminary practices, I too met with such a difficulty. So we've got to visualize, because the liturgy says we've got to visualize. So when we visualize, when I'm visualizing, sometimes I cannot visualize very clearly. And sometimes when I'm able to visualize it clearly, I cannot sustain that clear visualization for a long time. It's just for a short moment. And then I'll try again to visualize. So it is tiring and difficult. And lots of different discursive thoughts might arise. It is like different waves appearing in water. So there will be times when one gets angry at oneself. I'm supposed to be a practitioner. How can a practitioner have so many thoughts? So there were times when I get angry at myself, and I'll slap, and one would slap oneself, isn't it? And one would hate oneself. At a time I was in India, and in that year, Garchen Rinpoche came to India, at Jiangzhiling in India, and Rinpoche led us in a particular practice. And I had the opportunity to be part of that. And the time I asked Garchen Rinpoche, I have so many thoughts that arise, and it's really it's really making things very difficult for me. And there were times when I would hit myself. And Garchen Rinpoche laughed and said, "You're being overly serious. These afflictions, all kinds of discursive thoughts, they are the functions of the mind. So it is like bubbles in water. The more you pay attention to them, the more they'll arise. So just watch them mindfully. Don't feel angry at them. Don't try to fight them. Don't follow them. Don't hate those thoughts. The thoughts will naturally disappear within emptiness and clarity, because they are, in fact, manifestations of our mind. So our mind has movement and stability. Stability is emptiness and clarity. Movement is also stability, is also emptiness and clarity. Once you have grasped this, then you don't need to especially quiet down your mind. And you don't have to feel a kind of animosity towards these thoughts and afflictions. So when all kinds of thoughts arise, use this method. That was the teaching that Rinpoche gave us. And it was really beneficial for my mind stream. And from that time onwards, my mind training becomes extremely enjoyable, joyous. So if I'm able to quiet my mind, I let it quiet down. When lots of thoughts arise in my mind, that is also one of the objects that I can watch, that I can visualize. So I continually use this as reminders for my mindfulness. And naturally, it helps me in terms of developing my mindfulness. So at the time, I asked Rinpoche for some teaching and help. So for us, whatever thoughts that arise, they are just thoughts. And there will be times whereby the thoughts are virtuous thoughts, wholesome thoughts, for instance, compassion towards sentient beings or faith towards our guru. So we would have these wholesome thoughts. There are also times whereby there are afflictions, but they are both thoughts. Of course, we'll try to develop the wholesome thoughts, and should we get rid of unwholesome thoughts? That was what I asked Rinpoche. And at the time, Rinpoche gave an analogy or a simile. So Rinpoche said that milk, for instance, milk can be drunk, isn't it? And I replied, of course, milk can be drunk. And then Rinpoche said, how about the ink which we use to write? Can we drink ink? Then I replied, no, that cannot be drunk. Then Rinpoche said, both are fluids. Yet you can drink milk, but you cannot drink ink. So what is the difference then? One, so although on the surface it might seem like a discursive thought, but for one, it is beneficial for our training. For the other, it is not beneficial, but in fact would prove to be an obstacle for our training. So the Lord Jigten Sungul in Gongchik had said that the wholesome mind and the wholesome actions will not obscure Mahamudra. So I find that it matches perfectly what is said here versus what Rinpoche had taught me. So for me now, what I use when I have afflictions, this is the method that I use whenever afflictions arise. And so that is confessions. So the time is almost up. We still have 2 more days. So we will learn about the remainder of the 7 limb prayers over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.